Welcome back. Minister of Public Enterprises Pravin Gordhan has reiterated his ministry's commitment to cleaning up the boards of state-owned enterprises. He stressed the importance of turning these entities around following claims of state capture. He was speaking on the sidelines of a closed roundtable discussion on corruption at state-owned entities organised today by the Black Business Council.
Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan has stressed the pivotal role that state-owned enterprises play in the economy. He stressed Eskom's role in keeping the lights on and Transnet's role in moving goods in and out of the country. During the closed roundtable discussion with the Black Business Council, Minister Gordhan highlighted that SOEs have a liquidity problem.
Far more importantly, what President Ramaphosa has set out as our objectives, which is to clean up the boards, put in effective management teams, stabilize the finances of the state-owned entities, and then begin to effectively turn those businesses around.
The Black Business Council says it would like to see more black professionals being considered in new board positions. The council says better governance of SOEs is crucial to reindustrialize the economy and creating employment. It's further asked government to procure from black-owned businesses and small-medium enterprises.
SOEs play a critical element in facilitating the industrialization program, which will obviously require an interaction between the public enterprise, the national treasury from the procurement point of view, to say, in what better way of advancing this course of industrialization.
Gordhan has announced that there's an SOE governing council on the cards, which is expected to regulate governance and procurement issues at SOEs. Balindle Mthethwa, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Well, so what is the state of black business today, particularly in relation to economic growth and the SOEs? To discuss this, we're joined by the CEO of the Black Business Council, Kganki Matabane. Good evening to you and thank you for talking to us. Firstly, were you encouraged by the engagement with Minister Gordhan today?
Thank you very much for having us here. The engagements we have regular engagements with the various decision makers, being CEOs, global CEOs, ministers, and also to bring them closer to our members, to also then find ways of opening opportunities for black business to access and to push for the transformation of the economy that has not moved that much in 24 years.
If we speak about what's happened broadly, particularly when it comes to the role of SOEs, we've seen how, for example, it seems to be about proximity to power, it seems to be about the connected, and how that has been a template for opening up abusive patronage networks.
Yes, what happened in the past 9 years, I think it's been, as the minister was briefing us, was a bit scary. To say the least. You can see where the country is. The country has to increase VAT because chances are, if the VAT was not increased, we're going to be downgraded. And once you are downgraded, then you are in the hands of the IMFs of this world, who are then going to dictate policy. And that policy was never going to be part of transformation as such. So there have been a serious abuse of state-owned enterprises, which in our view was a loss for the past 9 years. Because if you look at the previous administration, even before 1994, SOCs were utilized for local development, to train Afrikaners, for example, to skill them, to make sure that they play a significant role in the economy. We should have done the same way and used the institutions to create jobs, and so on.
Well, it's precisely why I raised the question that in many ways that's what it should have been like, but we also know it also opened the door to create these patronage networks. It happened with organizations like the Broederbond before 1994, and we've seen through the state capture project that very much those patterns have been repeated. So when is the conversation about transformation, broadly speaking, and when is it about connections and access to power and patronage?
Yeah, what we shared with the minister today was that we are very much excited about the new dawn. We hope the people who were part of the state capture will face the consequences. They have to be dealt with because this is for the sake of our country and for our kids. We are sharing with the minister that we do have professional, capable, well-experienced professionals who are not corrupt, who can serve in these state enterprises as board members, but also who can run these state-owned enterprises. And we were very glad that the minister emphasized the importance of the new council that is going to look after the SOCs to develop the same framework for all the SOCs, because at the moment SOE one will do one thing, the other one does the other thing. Sometimes even the mandates are not the same. So the council is going to look at the framework of how do we reward and remunerate the CEOs or the people who are running the SOCs.
If we're still having a conversation about having more black professionals, for example, on the boards of SOEs, if we're still 24 years into our democracy, are struggling with transformation there, one has to ask the question, is empowerment working beyond just the few who are connected?
It could be working much better. It is working a little bit, but we could have done much better. But because of the diversion of the resources in the past 9 years, that project has set us probably maybe 20 years.
But is it simply about state capture? I mean, if we look at the figures that were released by the IDC, for example, if you talk about industrialization and black industrialists specifically, they've released a list of who's who of connected individuals. So is this working just for the elites, or is it something that we need to rethink, we need to rejig to make sure that more people are brought in and that there's a bigger pie for a lot more people?
Yeah. There are no issues with the law itself. I think the challenge is the implementation. So the people who are implementing this inappropriately should be dealt with, because then they are creating an impression that this only works for the connected, but that's not the way it's supposed to be. The law is very clear. It indicates who needs to be what needs to be transformed, who needs to be empowered, and so on. But I think it's the implementers who are sometimes then diverting it to suit their own interests.
So what does that say about formations like yours in terms of your ability to influence policy in a way that's tangible, in a way that actually delivers results, beyond just having engagements with ministers that may not result in the kind of things you'd like to see?
What that calls for, it calls for us then to lobby for more legislation that deal with people who are breaking the law. Because
are you able to influence policy directly? I mean, that's what I'm asking. It's one thing to have the minister come and show up and have a tete-a-tete and explain things you already know, but are you actually influencing policy in a meaningful way?
Yes, we are influencing policy. We almost on a daily basis we're engaging with legislation. We get given opportunities to, even behind the scenes, not in front of cameras, to engage with ministers, to engage with the bureaucrats, the people who are actually influencing this, to engage with the parliamentarians. We do engage, and where we are not happy, we then escalate the issues to a higher level. But we do have an influence in the legislation.
All right, we'll have to leave the conversation there. Obviously, more engagements to come. Thank you very much for joining us today. That was, of course, the CEO of the Black Business Council, Kganki Matabane. We've got a quick break, and we'll be back with more news at the top of the hour.